Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video with On Point Politics, your number one stop for all things polling and election analysis in the United States. And today, I want to talk about a new Quinnipiac poll that just came out that has Donald Trump leading by 1 point nationally, and why this is the worst news that Democrats could have gotten today and in the past few months ever since Kamala Harris replaced Joe Biden. Make sure to hit the like button to subscribe if you want more content just like this. And so we clearly see here that I have a new scorecard for pollsters. So I'm basically grading pollsters now based on their margin and their accuracy in 2020. We see the most accurate one was Alice Intel with just a 0.2 percentage point error, with the most right-leaning national pollster being Rasmussen. What people don't understand is that Rasmussen reports actually had an average of about 4 points, and so did Emerson College. And by the way, guys, we use the predicted margins from October 2nd to November 2nd because this is what we include in our average. What 538 did is they averaged out all of the polls from every single pollster for the whole year, which is not even fair to any of the pollsters because data from February, March, April, May is already outdated. So that's the first problem with these scorecards that were created. My scorecard's a lot better because it grades voters on the last month of the polling aggregate, which is around where the data tends to be the most useful. And what do we notice here? We see that Rasmussen, Emerson College, Big Poll Data, and Alice Intel all have A ratings. And we have a couple down here that are in the B rating, sort of an error, in the 6-7 point range. Then you have Research Co. Morning Consult, Siena College Test, New York Times, and Change Research. This is where the errors start getting pretty bad. And you have Quinnipiac University all the way down, graded at a D ranking with a 6-point error and an average basically lead of about 10.5 points for Biden in 2020. I mean, that's a huge average margin. And what we're looking at right now is we're basically comparing the crosstabs from the 2020 poll, their last 2020 poll, with their latest 2024 poll, and seeing what the shift between both maps is when we plug in the demographics into the Cook Political Report Swingometer. So when we look at this and compare them, this is what the latest poll results have. So yes, even though Donald Trump is leading in the top line, he's down when you apply the demographics like this, which makes no sense. And he's seemingly doing way better with Hispanics, which is fairly interesting compared to before, which will translate in what I'm about to show you. And I think a lot of people are going to be really shocked by this, guys. I think a lot of people are going to be very, very surprised by what I'm going to show you and how scarily accurate this actually matches my own model for 2024. I think a lot of people are going to be very, very shocked to see this. Now, looking at the 2020 polling, when we apply their crosstabs, you get a result of Donald Trump winning against Joe Biden. Here it says Kamala Harris, but for the sake of this, it'll be Joe Biden. Donald Trump would have lost to Joe Biden by 416 electoral college votes if you applied their crosstabs. They had a top line of Biden plus 4, but when you apply their demographics, they have around a Biden plus 14, 13 lead, which is basically sort of similar to what their average error was, which basically rounds out to D plus 11. And so when you look at this, you see that Kamala Harris or Joe Biden was supposedly, according to their final poll, going to win in Ohio, going to win in Iowa. He was ahead in Texas, ahead in Alaska. He was winning Colorado by 23. New Hampshire and Maine were safe margins. Like, just absolutely ridiculous stuff, guys. I mean, just ridiculous margins. And this is what the latest poll has. So what we did is we basically applied the shifts from these two polls till now to the 2020 results to see what the electoral map may actually look like. And you're going to be shocked to see how close this actually matches my own model. My own model for the election has Donald Trump with about an 85% chance to win the presidential election. And we see right here, he's winning in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania by likely margins, up in North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Arizona by likely margins, Colorado by a likely margin, as well as Washington, Oregon, Illinois, New York, a lot of the northeastern states. New Hampshire is about almost within a point. Same thing with Maine at large. It's about a point win. New Mexico is about a 3-ish point victory for Kamala Harris. Minnesota is around a tilt margin. So I haven't applied any of this modeling, which probably will go into my demographic modeling. When I get all the pollsters and I create a new demographic model, the election projection may change when I do an official update. But guys, looking at the shifts, we can classify Utah, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, the Dakotas, all of Nebraska, including Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Alaska, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Missouri, Indiana, Kentucky, West Virginia, as well as Maine's 2nd congressional district in the safe Republican column, guys. Yes, Maine's 2nd congressional district is basically going safe Republican here. Maine's 1st is safe Democrat. California is still in the safe Democrat column at about 19 points. Looking at, for example, Iowa, Ohio, and Texas, those are safe Republican on the map, as well as South Carolina, guys. Iowa in this forecast comes in at around roughly a 15.5 point win, Ohio at 15 points exactly, and Texas at 16 percentage points. What a disaster for the Democrats. A complete and total wipeout in the safe Republican states here, as well as Texas, because Trump only won Texas by 6 last time. So that's a 10-point improvement. And that's going to kind of foreshadow what New Mexico is going to look like in this swingometer forecast. Looking at the likely Democrat states, Oregon, Washington are coming in at about 9 and 11 and 13-point victories respectively. Colorado just a 5-point win. Hawaii in this forecast comes in at about 25. They didn't have Asian/other demographic breakdowns, so I didn't really edit those for the sake of the video. So I do think it'd be way closer in a 3.5-point environment. I actually think Hawaii would be pretty competitive if that was the case. Now, what's pretty fascinating is that the top line, when you look at the shift between the 2020 polling and this year's poll, when you apply that shift, Donald Trump is up in the popular vote by 3.4%, which is very close to Atlas Intel's 3.6 percentage point lead that they just posted not that long ago. So just FYI, guys, it's kind of aligning up with the accurate pollster. Florida about a 12-point win. I'm pretty sure I have it as about an 11-point victory. Georgia coming in at a 7-point victory for Trump. North Carolina about a 9 or 8-point. It's actually an 8-point victory. Arizona at 9 points for Trump. Nevada at about 6 points for Donald Trump as well. I actually forgot some of the safe states over here, like Massachusetts, Vermont, Maryland. New York is still barely in the safe column in this forecast, just above a 15-point victory there. So, but a lot of those northeastern states are way closer. Rhode Island, Delaware, New Jersey, only an 8-point win here. Illinois, likely Democrat as well. So that is pretty insane. And Illinois is only a 9.5-point win. And so when it comes down to it, you have competitive races across the nation that are looking really, really dire for the Democrats. And when you look at Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, guys, they are likely margins very similar to the ones that I have. And all I've done is look at the final 2020 Quinnipiac poll and look at the latest one, look at the shift between the demographic models and apply it to the 2020 results to see what shift it would give us. And Wisconsin and Pennsylvania are likely Republican margins, guys. And not only that, they're basically identical to what we have. We pretty much have the margins at about that. Those are pretty much almost spot on. I think we have Wisconsin as like plus 6.4 and Pennsylvania as plus 5.9, like literally within the margin of error between what the Quinnipiac shift is showing. Looking at Michigan, that's a 3.9 percentage point win, pretty close to what we have. And if we look at Nebraska's 2nd congressional district, we actually see it's a tilt Republican margin in the forecast. We have it as tilt Democrat. So that's also fairly interesting. Looking at Virginia and Maine at large, Maine is coming in at just 2.7% for Kamala Harris. which is sort of around where we have it. I mean, we have it as like a 1.5 point win. So that's within margin of error. Virginia, the same exact thing. And actually, I think that Virginia margin is somewhat actually a little bit too blue. We have Virginia as about 1.5 points in our forecast online here. But again, when we apply the new demographic model, we'll kind of get a better picture of how the race has updated. But Virginia coming in at about 3.5 points here, not a great sign. And we see that those Republican counties and districts have higher turnout in the basically the early vote compared to the Democrat districts and counties. So fairly interesting. And Minnesota and New Hampshire are literally tilt Democrat margins. And what do you know? When you go to my website, Minnesota is a tilt Democrat margin, and New Hampshire is just above a point for Kamala Harris. So what a coincidence. Looking at the shift between the Quinnipiac polls from 2020 and 2024, and you apply it to the 2020 results, and oh my God, look at that, guys. Just so coincidentally, my margins are pretty much lining up, and New Hampshire is voting to the left of Minnesota like it is in my forecast, and it's almost a point win, so it's somewhat close. And this is the shocker, guys. New Mexico is lean Republican in this forecast. Yes, lean Republican New Mexico. When you look at the shift between both, it is absolutely insane. Believe it or not, the state in this forecast that Donald Trump gains the most in is actually New Mexico. And it makes sense because looking at the crosstabs here, guys, look at that Hispanic vote. He's at 52% in this poll. That's a huge number, especially for Quinnipiac, by the way. And look at that. He was at 35%. So he basically pretty much almost doubled his Hispanic support. And Harris has fallen to 44%. But he's about double the Hispanic support nationwide. And you'll notice in this demographic model, a lot of states with African American or Hispanic populations tended to shift the most right in this modeling of the forecast. Arizona, a 10-point shift to the right almost. California, a 10-point shift. Florida, a 9-point shift. New Mexico, 12-point shift. Texas, 11-point shift. Utah, about an 8-point shift. So states with the most Hispanic populations tended to shift. Nevada, 9 points. So you're in this demographic model, the Hispanic population states did trend more Republican on average. And you see that Donald Trump is just killing it in the Electoral College in this one. He's just absolutely killing it in this one. So over time, we're going to be implementing all of the polls, their shifts from 2020 to 2024, kind of creating this universal demographic model. And when it's applied to the current electoral model that I have, it'll give us a more accurate picture of where the election is. But looking at this, Donald Trump is within striking distance of winning Minnesota and New Hampshire, guys. I mean, he's right there. And the campaigns have been very nervous. I mean, at least Kamala Harris has been nervous because she went to New Hampshire to campaign and she had to pick somebody out of Minnesota as her VP. She could have picked Shapiro out of Pennsylvania if she was feeling more confident. But the fact that she thought she had to bank on her left-wing base and dupe Shapiro of the nomination for VP because he's a Jew, and she felt like she needed somebody out of Minnesota to at least hold that ground, clearly shows that she's not as confident in her chances as most people would like to believe. And even today, Gallup polling, they had their own party ID tracker, which has basically gotten the popular vote almost within half a point the past couple of cycles since 2008, and Republicans are up by 3 now, which is the first time they've been up actually since ever that they started, because they started in 1992, the graph shows, and this is the first time Republicans actually have an outright majority. So again, guys, I'm telling you, Donald Trump's chances are way better than you think they are. I'm almost starting to be really confident that she basically doesn't even have a path in Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina like our last video suggested, because even the worst pollsters, the worst graded pollsters in the entire country, when you apply their demographic modeling, she cannot even win Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina. And so I think her pass there may pretty much be finished. And she kind of has to rely on that Rust Belt path. And I'd say that Wisconsin and Pennsylvania are looking very iffy for her. And it may be time, by the time we come to the election, she may not even have a path to the presidency. And so if you guys did enjoy this video, make sure to hit the like button and to subscribe if you want more content just like this. And I will see you guys in the next video. Make sure to check betonline.com where you can bet on the presidential election. You can bet on which state each state's going to go. You can also bet on the margins as well in these states. And you can even vote on the presidential debate coming up with Tim Walz versus JD Vance. And you can bet on the US Senate elections. The link in the description is down below for you to sign up for free and to begin betting.